Hello and welcome to the Serving the LGBT plus Travel Market workshop, part of the 2021 BC Tourism and Hospitality Conference. My name is Kelsey Millman. I am a communications manager for the BC Hotel Association. As this session is being hosted in Vancouver, BC, we'd just first like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. It is my pleasure to introduce you to your speakers today, Darrell Schuurman and Dale McDermott. Darrell Schuurman is the co-founder and CEO of CGLCC, Canada's LGBT plus Chamber of Commerce, a national not-for-profit organization with a mission to expand the opportunities and advancement of the LGBT plus business community in Canada. Joining Darrell is Dale McDermott, COO for CGLCC. Both Darrell and Dale are advocates of effecting social change through the economic empowerment of the LGBT plus entrepreneurs. Before we get started, I just want to advise that we will have a time for a short Q&A session at the end, so please be sure to submit your questions via the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. It is so wonderful to have you both with us today, and with that, I will pass things over to you, Darrell and Dale.
Great, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. So Dale is going to share the screen here. Excellent. Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much. It's fantastic to be here with you today. I believe that we are, we're one of the last sessions of the day. So thank you for joining us here. Again, my name is Darrell Schuurman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the CGLCC, and I'm here with my colleague, Dale. So what we want to do is over the next 45 minutes or so is give you an introduction and overview of the LGBT travel market. We want to talk to you about the program that we've built out and are delivering across the country to support Canada's tourism industry become market ready for the LGBT traveler. And this is in partnership with the federal government and Tourism HR Canada, which we'll talk about. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the steps that you can take to tap into this market and work towards recovery. So we're going to try to make sure that we leave ample time at the end for Q&A. So again, as mentioned, feel free to put your questions into the chat, and if we can, we'll try to address them as we're going along. So great, so let's get started. What I'd like to do is, first of all, maybe just give you a little bit of an overview of the CGLCC and who we are and what we do, and then I'll pass it over to my colleague Dale to kind of talk a little bit about the market itself. So we launched the Chamber in 2003, and our mission has always been and continues to be to support the economic opportunity and empowerment of the LGBT community. So what we're doing is really working to support Canada's LGBT plus entrepreneurs and businesses grow and succeed, and ultimately lead to an inclusive economy. We conducted our first national landscape study actually last year and found that there are 28,000 LGBT-owned businesses across the country generating an economic impact of over $22 billion. We also know that this is underestimated. From the research that we conducted, we know that many LGBT plus businesses and entrepreneurs are hesitant to self-identify for fear of discrimination and loss of business. So, we work to support them, and the tens of thousands of others out there that are hesitant to self-identify. We work to help them be the best that they can be and to continue to create a truly thriving, inclusive economy, as I mentioned. So we do that with the support of our corporate and government partners and our network of regional LGBT plus chambers of commerce and businesses associations across the country who help us deliver our programming. So, let me talk a little bit about some of our core program areas. So we have four main areas of focus, and then a fifth being advocacy, but I'll talk quickly about each one of those. So our supplier diversity program is where we're working with our corporations and governments to help diversify their supply chains. We know that diverse-owned businesses, and LGBT specifically in our case, are underrepresented in public and corporate procurement. And so we want to work to help to create connections and connect those LGBT plus businesses with corporate and government partners to help ensure that LGBT businesses have that same equal access to procurement opportunities as other businesses. Our LGBT youth program, our entrepreneurship program, works to support young queer entrepreneurs looking to either start or grow their own business. So we've had this program in place for a few years now, and it's a national program where we're providing them with a mentor that they can support. The mentor can support them along the way and help them navigate some of the many challenges that they face. This year, I'm so pleased that we have young entrepreneurs participating kind of from coast to coast, and we have some in the tourism industry. So we're really hoping to continue to grow that and really encourage more youth in tourism to be part of this program. Our third program that I want to mention is our global program. And this is where we work with our LGBT businesses to help create opportunities globally. And a large part here is through trade missions. And we've done a lot of this in partnership with the federal government through Global Affairs Canada and EDC. And then, of course, our fourth program is our tourism program, where we're really focused on helping to create an inclusive tourism industry and working to help Canada grow its tourism receipts through LGBT tourism. And so obviously this is where we're going to focus on today. And then the fifth area here is around advocacy, and that is very much around continuing to advocate on behalf of Canada's LGBT plus businesses at the federal, provincial, and local levels to make sure that our governments and our communities understand the value and contributions that our community, our LGBT business community brings. So I think with that, I will pass it over to Dale to talk a little bit about the LGBT travel market itself. Dale.
Thanks, Darrell, and it's great to be joining everyone today virtually. So before we can serve the LGBT plus travel market, we need to understand what it is. And I'm happy to say that there's a lot of data that we have conducted ourselves, but also been conducted by other organizations who are well versed in this industry. And what I'm hoping to do is just share with you some of the unique characteristics of the industry, the size, the scale, and the opportunity that exists for the LGBT plus travel market as you look to attract them. So, you know, the first thing to say is that this really is an untapped potential, and there are really lucrative possibilities for you as you look to this industry as something that you want to work towards attracting. So the first thing to say is that, you know, again, there's been lots of research on this, and CGLCC in partnership with Crestview Strategy, our partners in Tourism, HR Canada, the Government of Canada and Leger conducted an in-depth research research study on the LGBT plus travel market in 2020, and from that we know that the overall Canadian travel market industry for LGBT people is around $12 billion, which is a whopping amount. It's quite sizable. Comparing that then to North America, we know that travel market as a whole is worth around $70 billion every year, and the global market is estimated to be in around $200 billion every year. So, you know, these are sizable figures, sizable amounts that, you know, really offer up an opportunity for tourism industry and the tourism sector to tap into and attract, especially as we look towards COVID-19 and recovery. Turning now just to some of the more nuanced and interesting parts of what we know regarding this untapped potential. We do know that LGBT plus travelers are interested in traveling within Canada, and we do know that they have the ability to travel. LGBT plus travelers, around 91% of them have passports. So, you know, being able to get on a plane and travel is something which you know, this sector can do. And we also know that they have more disposable income. So they outspend their mainstream counterparts about 7 times what the average trip expense is with respect to traveling. So more disposable income means a higher ability to be able to spend that on travel. We also know a few other pieces here too. As has been shown after previous industry shocks, such as 9/11 and SARS, the LGBT plus traveler is generally amongst the first traveler segment to rebound. And right now, about 90% of them are seeking travel opportunities here within Canada. And that's data which comes from our research. It is possible to tap into this profitable and diverse market, but it does take some work. And in part of our the data that came from our research study is that we know safety is one thing which LGBT plus travelers tend to value a lot more than their mainstream counterparts. And they show that commitment to destinations and tourism businesses that value their comfort and their well-being is really important to them. So when I say safety, it refers to generally feeling welcomed and accepted, but it can also refer to the political context of a destination, which is going to be really important as travelers look to more international destinations as well. So important to say, safety is a big consideration for these travelers. But it's also important to remember that before you engage with these communities, you need to prepare them and prepare to welcome them into a safe space. This means ensuring that your destination and your business recognizes gender and sexual diversity and has meaningful practices in place to ensure that LGBT plus travelers are welcome and have an inclusive and positive experience within your industries and your organizations. So with that, I'll now pass it over to Darrell again, who'll be able to talk more about the importance of being market ready. So Darrell, I'll pass it back to you.
Great, thanks, Val. Yeah, and I think that to build on those last 2 points that you talked about, the safety and resiliency, really emphasize why we should be looking at this market now. And but at the same time, knowing that we need to ensure that we are delivering on the market's needs and expectations. So, we all need to be looking at ways at opportunities to recover. And I truly believe that the LGBT plus travel market does provide a great opportunity for so many Canadian tourism-based businesses and destinations. And we're already very well positioned. I think, yes, in my opinion, with Canada being recognized as a leader in diversity kind of globally. So in some respect, I guess the framework is already there. But that certainly doesn't mean that we can all just kind of slap a rainbow flag on our front door or our website and expect the LGBT traveler to start rolling in. So we need to make sure that our businesses are and our communities and our employees are really ready to welcome the LGBT traveler. So what we've been doing in partnership, as mentioned earlier, with the federal government and Tourism HR Canada, we've created a number of training and educational tools to really support Canada's tourism industry in these efforts. So what I'm going to do is I'll kind of go through I'll start with just an overview of the program, and I'll talk about some of the specific activities. So, first of all, the National LGBT Tourism Development Program was developed with a goal really to deliver a responsive and comprehensive and sustainable, I think sustainable is an important element there, sustainable LGBT tourism market ready program. So we received funding from Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, or ISED, and the program really aimed, again, to get destinations and the industry ready for LGBT plus travelers. We spent the past 18 months working on this, and we're actually just heading into the final few weeks of this project, and I'm really excited about what we've been able to accomplish and kind of what lies ahead after the end of this month. So on the screen here, you can see some of the things that we've been building out and what we've achieved. Ultimately, we have a series of tools and resources, training and education that we've been delivering and will have delivered to support Canada's tourism industry, kind of coast to coast to coast, and help them be ready to serve the market. what's amazing is in the span of just a few months, we'll have conducted more than 40 workshops and more than 30 market-ready presentations, worked with more than a dozen communities across the country, and engaging more than 1,000 participants, so those employees within the tourism industry, and helping them to get ready for the travel market. So we'll start going into some of the program activities. So the first one here is our training program. So our diversity and inclusion training program for the tourism industry. You know, as we talked about earlier, and as excuse me, and as Dale mentioned, you know, one of the most important factors in becoming LGBT market ready is ensuring that the traveler feels welcome, and that brings about the level of safety. So creating a safe place for them is truly critical, and that's really where the focus of this training is. You know, businesses need to make sure that their workplace is an inclusive environment, not only for the LGBT customers, but also for their employees as well. So we have to remember that people aren't always out or visible, and so we don't necessarily know the impact of what we're saying or what we're doing, and that's really why this training is so critical. Our particular training program, it's a half-day training workshop. It's facilitated by one of our trainers who really teaches the basics of LGBT inclusive vocabulary, space, and workplace. And some of the things that are covered are things like terms and definitions related to the LGBT community, touches on homophobia, transphobia, heterosexism in the workplace, how to create a safe space, and then of course, you know, touches on the strategies to interact with customers that identify as LGBT+. What we've also done in this is include an introductory self-paced online course, which allows participants to have a really strong foundation going into the facilitated workshops, and then providing a more rich and robust discussion with the trainer and the other participants. You know, at the end of the day, the goal here is really to arm participants with action items that they can use to transform their workplace into an LGBT safe space. And as part of this program with the federal government, we deliver training sessions from across the country in both official languages. So, you know, and I know that I'm talking specifically about our training program here, but I think the important thing to keep in mind is that, you know, if for those of you that are tuning in here this afternoon, you know, the training piece is so critical. And so, you know, I know that there are lots of training programs out there. You know, work with your tourism industry association, work with your local DMO, work with your local communities to see what you can do to make sure that your community and your businesses and your staff are well trained and ready for the customer. So the next area that we've been working on, again under this national program, is our travel market seminars. So, you know, this is really about providing destinations and businesses a truly kind of more robust and thorough understanding of the travel market. So, you know, Dale took about 10 minutes here and gave a really quick overview about about the travel market, you know, kind of the travel habits, motivators and stuff. But, you know, I think it's really critical for community, for industries to have a really thorough understanding of this market. And so that's one of the things that we've done is we've built out, based on the research that Dale was talking about and previous research, we've helped participants to really build an effective LGBT market strategy that they can kind of develop based on. One of the things that we've done is kind of build out these personas of the LGBT traveler types. So, you know, because I think what we should mention is that, you know, although we've been talking about the LGBT market as one large market, clearly what we need to do is we need to understand that there are multiple markets within the LGBT community. And so one strategy to cover the entire LGBT community just does not work. And so, you know, these are some of the things that through these seminars and through the research, you know, we'll be able to kind of give a much richer understanding of what this community, the communities within the community look like. And then at the same time, really share some best practices from around the world, because that was a big piece of the research that we also did earlier. Was we conducted a variety of different best practices, not only here in Canada, but from around the world. And that really helped to shape kind of what I'll go into here next is our destination audit program. Because this is really where we want to look at how can we support our destinations, making sure that they are providing a kind of a complete experience for the LGBT traveler. So the audits really are designed to assess a destination's strengths and potential areas for improvement as they look to become ready for the traveler. So what we've been doing is we work with a great host of LGBT tourism specialists who really conduct deep dives into a destination, and they work with those destinations to ensure that they're best positioned to be actively welcoming the market. So a key part of this is conducting consultation sessions and fully engaging community and the destination stakeholders to really evaluate the past and present efforts that the destination has done or is doing to cater to the travel market. The audit process, it also includes things like providing critical market information knowledge and training for community stakeholders, and identifying potential LGBT targeted services and programs, or even just connecting with kind of prospective community networks and partners that they can build out. At the end of the day, what the audit team is really doing is helping to perhaps uncover some of those opportunities to help the destinations become market ready. So maybe something simple like reimagining an existing product or experience already available within a destination, or perhaps developing a new partnership. So things like that is what the audit team is there to work with the destination to create. And at the end, we hope to provide, or not hope, we will provide recommendation report that can serve as kind of that benchmarking tool for the destination to kind of continue to assess and evaluate their market strategy. I think one of the things I want to also mention here is that, critical, I mentioned the consultation session, but it's really critical to have broad consultation with the community at large, and I'm not talking just the tourism community or the LGBT community. I'm talking the community at large. And so that means bringing in your local government, bringing in your police department, bringing in all kind of touch points where the traveler, the LGBT traveler is going to, what they're going to experience, because that shapes their ultimate experience at that destination. And if you don't have kind of that understanding or that participation from the community at large, you run the risk of not being able to deliver the best experience for your LGBT travelers. So I think that consultation and that engagement of the broader community is so very critical. So with that, I'll pass it over to Dale to talk about the last element, which is accreditation.
Thank you, Darrell. So the last piece of work that we have been doing is on our LGBT plus safe space accreditation program. So we've named it Rainbow Registered, and this really helps to certify and I suppose clarify businesses and organizations and communities with their status as being LGBT plus friendly. So it's an opportunity for organizations and businesses to be visible in their support. And what we do is we work with businesses to go through this accreditation process. So the accreditation process itself is testing a number of key items to determine, is your organization or your business a safe space for the LGBT plus consumer, and in many cases traveler. And then it allows for those businesses to demonstrate and to show that they are indeed a safe space, and in this case, they are indeed Rainbow registered. So this is a program which we are just about to launch. We will be launching it in April. So I would encourage you to follow more on our website, cglcc.ca. You can see that in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, where you'll be able to follow more about the accreditation program when we have more details on it being launched. But I think this is a really big opportunity. You know, again, our data tells us that safety is a really critical piece for LGBT plus travelers, but also just, I think, more generally and more broadly for the LGBT plus consumer. And you know, this is a way to allow yourself as an organization or a business who might be doing really good work to support all people, all walks of life, but especially LGBT plus, to be able to declare that. And one thing we know about, from the LGBT plus consumer is that they're loyal. So there certainly is an aspect to this which it can be good for your organization and for your business as well. So that's our Safe Space Accreditation program. A reminder to participants, if you do have any questions on anything we've said so far, please feel free to ask it. I believe in the Q&A box. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions, and I know some are coming in already. So just to kind of round us out here, you know, in terms of what you can do next, you know, there's lots of things you can do, and we all want to see the tourism industry rebound with strength. If we all work together to support one another and adapt to our changing world, we can ensure that the tourism industry can continue to thrive, you know, with increased safety precautions with respect to COVID-19. And there are a few things you can do to, you know, support the LGBT plus community, you know, such as promoting inclusive practices within your work, working with us on your training and development programs, and working with us on that. But also, you know, getting in touch with us and contacting us for more information and resources. This has been a really large program for CGLCC. We've developed a lot of experience in terms of this area, and you know, we're ready to assist you in being able to, you know, tap into that market and bring it forward as well. So so with that, I think I can pause there. I want to thank you for hosting us here today and allowing us to give this presentation, and we can pause there and we can take some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for that presentation. It's an amazing program that you have to offer. So I definitely think this is a great opportunity for a lot of people in the tourism and travel industry to take advantage of that. So just getting started with some questions. First question is, what types of tourism businesses are you seeing an uptake in wanting to focus on the LGBTQ plus market?
So this is where we'll play tag team. I don't know. So Dale, do you want me to take it?
I can take it. Or sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, really, what we're finding out is that you know, traditional tourism industries, if you will, such as you know, hotels, restaurants, all of those sort of industries are, you know, getting involved in the work that we do. But you know, a tourism industry can also be quite broader than that too. What we know is, for example, banks, financial institutions will interact with tourists. We'll know that grocery stores and food markets will also look to interact with customers as well. So, you know, we're seeing really a broad number of industry sectors engaging in this program, because you know, tourists can really be quite a broad term, and so it really ranges from generalized, you know, stereotypical tourism industries, if you will, like hotels and restaurants and bars and destinations, but also, you know, the more less common thinking, I suppose, such as financial institutions and grocery stores as well. But Darrell, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that as well.
Yeah, I'll add in a few things. I think one of the things that Dale may have touched on briefly in the overview of the LGBT travel market. You know, in the research that we conducted, you know, one of the things that we look at is, again, you know, what are the travel habits and what are they looking for and what are they experiencing when they're traveling? And so it's not, and we found this time and time again, is that it's not much different than the average traveler. So, you know, they're highly engaged in food and dining, in cultural activities. So I think those type of experiences are important to the LGBT traveler. But I think what was interesting from the research that we did last year or this year was the focus around, and it has typically always been on large urban centers of where they're traveling, and that's still a very important and still the primary destination or experience that they're looking for, urban centers. But what we did see was a really strong increase of not only past travel but future travel intentions. So when we're looking at outdoor activities, so experiencing the countryside and national parks, those really spiked quite high in this past research. So I think that we also have to really look at those businesses that you know, that are offering outdoor type of activities, and not necessarily just urban focused and urban based activities. Are really important in the industry, and the market is really looking at those. So some of the work that, you know, we talked about the work that we've been doing across the country, but we've been working in the north. So we've been doing a lot of workshops and training in northern Canada, in northern regions of the provinces here. So and I think that there's lots of potential, and my assumption is that with you know, as things start to open up post-COVID, you're going to see a lot more interest in and demand for that type of travel. So we already know that that intention was happening, and I think we're going to see that increase even more.
Great. That actually leads to another question. How has COVID-19 impacted the LGBT plus consumer?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that they're, you know, you said consumer or traveler?
Consumer.
Consumer, okay. Well, I mean, I think, you know, broadly, the consumer base, you know, it reflects broadly how consumers across, you know, all industries and general population have been affected. But specifically just taking tourism, for example, you know, their travel intent is one of the items that we found to be disrupted. So the national piece of research, which I mentioned, we conducted before, that actually uniquely went into field just after COVID was declared as a pandemic. So, you know, we got, you know, one of the first pieces of research in terms of how COVID-19 was going to affect the traveler. And you know, what we found from that research was that, you know, 90% of travelers were looking to travel domestically. And, you know, that's where, you know, our message here is that this is the opportunity. You know, it's worth $12 billion every year, and 90% want to travel across Canada domestically. So, you know, this really is a significant opportunity for tourism businesses and destinations to again tap into, but that's just one of the key headline figures which we found from that piece of research.
I have another question here. Your stats reflect that LGBT plus travelers like traveling in Canada. Are these travelers generally traveling by plane, car, or are they exploring smaller communities or generally focusing on larger centers?
I think, Darrell, that kind of touches back into what you were mentioning previously about the moving out of urban centers and beyond into more rural experiences.
So yeah, so the focus, to answer the second part of the question first, you know, the focus still, we still see the strongest demand is in larger urban centers, but that is followed by tier 2 centers, so your smaller urban centers, and then again followed by countryside and national parks. So those are kind of the order. So yes, so larger urban centers still kind of the primary but certainly you're starting to see smaller centers taking more shape. In terms of the mode of travel, I was just trying to look. We do have that, and I was just looking to see what that is. I think predominantly it is we see for leisure travel we saw commercial flight, but also certainly is pretty much on par with car. So car and commercial flight. If we're looking specifically, for BC, and what the stats have shown from the research is that the majority of LGBT travelers traveling to BC, and I think this probably mirrors the general BC travel demographics, is that the majority, it's around, I think 39% are from within BC itself. So LGBT travelers from BC traveling within BC, followed closely from LGBT travelers in Alberta. So again, I think that's on par with your general demographic. And then from that would be Ontario at around 18%, and then Quebec at around 10%. So those are kind of the key markets for BC at this point. Again, domestic key markets within the LGBT travel.
Wonderful, thank you. Another question, there has been a significant change in language, especially with non-binary terms becoming more popular. There's pronouns like they, them, they're becoming more commonplace. How can tourism operators accommodate these terms to be LGBT plus friendly?
Yeah, and I think this is a really good question, and certainly we want to be a partner to the tourism industry as they look to navigate this industry. So we understand that the education required to really understand this market is something which needs to be overcome. But I do want to reemphasize, first of all, the opportunity here. This is a really sizable market in the economy, $12 billion every year, $70 billion across all of North America, $200 billion across the world. So economically speaking, off the bat, big opportunity here. But going into the detail then again on the LGBT plus traveler itself, really value safety. And with safety comes, an understanding of the community, and really being able to authentically interact with the LGBT plus traveler is absolutely paramount for any business in order to really build that relationship with the industry. But also, again, the LGBT plus traveler is loyal, and if you want to build brand loyalty and consumer loyalty, you do that by knowing your customer and being able to engage with your customer correctly. And it's also the right thing to do. This is, as time goes on, there's a greater understanding and educational responsibility, I think, for businesses to understand all consumers, and that includes LGBT+. Where CGLCC comes in, and Darrell alluded to this in the pieces of work that we've been doing over the last 2 years on the travel industry, is one of the key parts of that is that education and training is a key part of that. And we've developed a fully fleshed out diversity and inclusion training that's tailored towards the tourism market to, again, help the tourism market to really understand the LGBT plus consumer. Really goes into language, all of those parts which the person who asked the question referenced. And again, it's to bring that education piece and that knowledge piece to maximize their potential to engage with the consumer in an authentic way. So I would encourage the questioner to visit cglcc.ca to learn more about the educational components that we can offer to assist them to bridge that knowledge gap.
Yeah, and I'll just, I think you bang on there, Dale, and I think that authenticity is such an important piece, and that is the most critical element. I think at the end of the day, you want to be able to, create an experience that, we talked about safety as such a critical element. You want to create a space for all of your guests, so not just LGBT guests, but any guests to feel welcome, to feel that they are having the best experience that they're having. And so that means knowing how to communicate, knowing how to talk about and talk with your guests. So that understanding of the language and understanding of any particular travel segment is so critical. You know, and language, and I know that sometimes it's a challenge, and I know it can be kind of overwhelming, but I would also argue that it's probably not unique to the LGBT community. I think that you know, when we started looking at the Chinese market, that there were a lot of unique services that we had to look at, and perhaps that we weren't used to. So I think that it needs to be part of how we do business now. And at the end of the day, our customers are demanding it, not just LGBT customers, but you're seeing it more and more within the broader community. Allies and general population are starting to look and expect that same type of experience. So.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple more questions here. What are your thoughts on creative ways that operators can target the LGBT plus travel market? Would you recommend like creating specific packages for those consumers at all, or what are some ideas on that?
I think there's a few ways you could do it. You know, one, and again, I think the authenticity piece kind of, you know, permeates into really all aspects of this. You know, so in terms of your marketing activities and, you know, your community activities. So, you know, being open in the community, supporting your community if there are LGBT plus organizations within your community. You know, I think knowing who they are and being aware of those organizations, I think is first of all off the bat an important thing to do in terms of knowing your local geography. But again, I would encourage you know, people to, you know, really take a look at our research. As Darrell alluded to, it really is telling us what consumers are looking for from their tourism experiences. So I think, you know, to answer your question, Kelsey, the suggestion of tailoring packages, I think, is one that you could do. You know, I think if you're looking at marketing, I think influencer marketing is another item which is becoming more and more popular, and depending on your views on that, but it is something which is you know, growing significantly, and, you know, being able to engage LGBT plus influencers is another way of affirming your support for the community. But then also, just to selfishly plug, you know, we do have our accreditation program, and, you know, part of that accreditation program is you know, certifying that you are an accredited business, that you are a safe space. That is a marketing asset that you could use to deploy in your marketing strategies to attract your customer, you know, both in person, but also virtually and online. So, you know, there's a number of strategies you can do, but again, it all ties back to being authentic. If you're not authentic in your marketing, if you're not authentic in your outreach, your level of success with our community is going to diminish.
Such a good point. And I think right now, especially, there's so many people are really embracing diversity and inclusion, but there's a conversation around tokenism and that authenticity. So that's really great and important to really emphasize.
I think, oh, sorry, I'm just going to jump in and just add one other thing, because I think that to build on what Dale talked about, you know, and he certainly talked about, you know, finding, you know, those partnerships. And I think that speaks to that authenticity, you know, aligning with those organizations, and whether it's your local, you know, within your local organizations within your community, you know, working with them, that really reflects that authenticity, and being actively engaged with them. But, you know, just in terms of just general marketing activities, you know, it's like, what are you doing to make sure that you're inclusive of the LGBT travel market? I think that historically, if you look at a lot of creative, has typically been, you know, perhaps a straight white couple with, you know, two kids. Is that really reflective of the broader traveler now, and especially as we start to look at different segments? And so I think, making sure you're reflective and speaking to all communities, and in this case, obviously the LGBT community, and reflecting that in your initiatives and your activities goes a long way. And it doesn't necessarily need to be segmented or separated out. I think, that inclusion of part of your general marketing activities actually speaks volumes. And so having that be part of your general marketing campaigns, and including LGBT components within your general marketing campaigns is really important.
Absolutely. All right, one final question. There's a couple here. Is the Rainbow Registered program recognized and, more importantly, trusted by the Canadian LGBT plus travelers? The second part is, what is the CGLCC doing to raise awareness of the program with consumers? Are the complementary global programs that would be equally recognized by international travelers?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. A few points to kind of go through there. So, with respect to the program, being recognized by our community, absolutely. This is a new program that we're launching. So the program hasn't launched yet, but what we have done is we've spent the last number of months developing a key critical criteria to ensure that across 4 categories, to ensure that we're testing LGBT general businesses. It's open to all types of businesses, but to ensure that they are being tested in a really thorough way, to ensure that all aspects of making an LGBT plus safe space are being captured, tested, and recognized. We just completed our pilot program where we engaged a number of pilot test businesses and organizations to go through this. And, this is definitely a program which I think is rigorous, stands the test of quality assurance. And but again, it's something we will continue to build on. This is a version 1, and the more as we go through time, the better the program will get. But I think it's something which can definitely be trusted by travelers, but also the general consumer as well. It's not just targeted towards travelers, but also the broader consumer base as well.
And I think that it's important to note that when we built out this program, we did do a thorough review of other global programs out there, and there are other global programs. So to the second part of that question, there are other global programs out there, and that are recognized. I feel that, and many are great programs. I do think that ours is probably more comprehensive than many that are out there, where we do have, there is a thorough, as Dale talked about, a thorough and rigorous audit process that goes into this, this accreditation element. So whereas some of the other programs that we reviewed globally may just be, to oversimplify, more of a membership-based organization, that still comes with it, some recognition. And I talked about the alignment and the importance of those alignment with those other associations. I think that's important, but I feel that ours probably adds an added layer of comfort and assurance for the LGBT consumer.
And then just one last point to add as well. So it is an assurance process. So we have assessors who will, a business or organization will make an application. They will be assessed on 4 categories by the assessor. Evidence, both external and internal, must be produced to ensure that they're meeting the 4 criteria. And important to point out that, organizations that apply can be turned down and can fail the accreditation process. So it is rigorous, and I think it will stand the test. And the final point, which I think we haven't addressed, which is around how we're going to raise awareness. The program is being launched at some point in April, so hopefully I encourage you to keep an eye on social media and keep an eye on our website, especially as we will be announcing further details on that on the program launch.
That's wonderful.
And sorry, I'm going to add one last comment because I think we need to give a strong shout out to our partners at Tourism HR Canada, which have been instrumental in all the work that we've been doing. And for those of you that are familiar with them, they do this type of work a lot. And so they brought a very strong level of experience in this program as we built out this accreditation. So I think that through the work that our teams in partnership with THRC did, I think that the level of assurance that we'll be rolling out will be certainly is noteworthy. So hopefully.
I'd say so.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Well, it's been such a huge pleasure to have you both join us today, and what an incredible program and opportunity for businesses to really leverage this market. We will be posting the recording of this presentation online and also through our communications through BCHA, along with further details on the program as well. Thank you again, Darrell and Dale, and for everyone for joining us for this conference. This is actually the last session of the day, so on behalf of both the BC Hotel Association and the Tourism Industry Association of BC, we just want to thank everyone for joining us for this free workshop day, as well as the BC Tourism